All right, foodie friends, buckle up. Today we're diving deep into the art of talking about cuisines. You know, those conversations that go beyond this is good and really get into the heart of what makes food so fascinating.
It's amazing how food can be a window into history, culture, even economics. You think you're just enjoying a plate of pasta, but there are centuries of stories woven into every bite.
Okay, I'm already hooked, but I'll admit sometimes I feel like I'm missing the vocabulary to really express what I'm tasting or experiencing. Like, how do I move beyond yum and actually sound like I know what I'm talking about?
That's where understanding the nuances of culinary language comes in. It's not just about knowing what cuisine means. It's about being able to pinpoint what makes Neapolitan pizza different from a Sicilian slice, or why a specific spice blend makes a curry sing.
So it's about having the words to match the flavors. I'm thinking about a time I was traveling in Thailand and the street food blew my mind, but all I could say was, wow, spicy. Looking back, I wish I had the words to describe the intricate layers of flavors, the heat, the tanginess, the subtle sweetness.
Exactly. And, even within a single cuisine, there are regional variations, historical influences, and personal interpretations that make each dish unique. Being able to articulate those subtleties is what takes a food conversation from basic to brilliant.
This is making me realize that learning about food is a never-ending journey. There's always something new to discover, a new flavor combination to unravel, a new story to uncover.
Absolutely. Think of today's deep dive as your toolkit for unlocking those deeper levels of appreciation. We'll be exploring vocabulary that goes beyond the basics, phrases that spark engaging conversations, and tips for communicating your food experiences with nuance and confidence.
I'm ready to level up my foodie vocabulary, so where do we begin?
Well, instead of simply defining basic terms, let's jump right into some real-world scenarios. Imagine you're at a dinner party and someone mentions their love for Indian food. How could you take that conversation beyond a simple "me too"?
I can ask them what their favorite regional cuisine is within Indian food. That would show that I'm interested in learning more about their specific tastes and that I recognize the diversity within Indian cuisine.
Excellent. That's a great example of how a simple question can open up a whole world of conversation. You could even share a personal experience, like, I once had this incredible Rogan Josh in a tiny restaurant in London. The lamb was so tender, and the sauce was incredibly complex.
That reminds me of this amazing Thai green curry I had in San Francisco. The coconut milk was so creamy, and the lemongrass and ginger added this incredible aroma and a touch of heat. But how do I explain that to someone who might not be familiar with those flavors?
That's where descriptive language comes in. Instead of just saying spicy, you could describe the specific type of heat. Is it a slow burn, a sharp kick, or a lingering warmth? You can also use metaphors and similes to paint the picture for your listener. For example, you could say the ginger brightened the dish, or that the lemongrass had a citrusy perfume.
I love that. It's about finding the words that capture the essence of the experience. Instead of just listing ingredients, I'm actually conveying how those ingredients work together to create a symphony of flavors and textures.
Precisely. And don't be afraid to draw on your other senses as well. What did the dish look like? Was it vibrant and colorful, or earthy and rustic? Did it have a captivating aroma that filled the air? The more senses you engage, the more immersive your descriptions become.
It's like I'm suddenly seeing food in a whole new light, not just as something to eat, but as an experience to savor and share. I'm starting to understand how even a simple conversation about food can become a rich tapestry of flavors, stories, and cultural connections.
And remember, the more you engage with different cuisines and expand your culinary vocabulary, the more confident and articulate you'll become in these conversations.
I'm feeling inspired to break out of my culinary comfort zone and start exploring. But before we dive into more specific examples, what are some essential phrases that can help me navigate those food conversations with grace and enthusiasm?
Well, let's equip you with some phrases that can add zest to your culinary conversations. For instance, if you're trying to pinpoint a specific taste, instead of saying, it's kind of sweet, try, there's a delicate sweetness, almost floral. Or, it's more of a savory sweetness, like caramelized onions.
So it's about getting specific and drawing comparisons to other familiar tastes. That makes so much sense. What about when you're trying to complement a dish without resorting to just delicious?
Absolutely. You can praise the balance of flavors, the creativity of the dish, or even the way it evokes a specific memory or feeling. For example, you might say, the chef's use of herbs is really inspired, or this reminds me of my grandmother's cooking so comforting.
Those are great examples. I can see how using those kinds of phrases would make me sound more like a discerning foodie and less like someone who just inhales their food without paying attention.
Precisely. And remember, asking questions is just as important as making statements. It shows genuine interest and can lead to some fascinating insights. Instead of simply asking, "Do you like spicy food?" try something like, "What's your tolerance for heat?" I find that a touch of chili really elevates the other flavors.
Oh, I like that. It's like an invitation to share their personal preferences and maybe even some stories about their own culinary adventures. I know I love hearing about people's food experiences, especially when they've traveled to places with cuisines I'm not as familiar with.
Exactly. And you can encourage those stories by asking open-ended questions like, "What's the most unusual dish you've ever tried?" Or, "Is there a particular food that brings back strong memories for you?"
Now that we're talking about it, I'm remembering this incredible meal I had in Morocco. It was a tagine with lamb and apricots, and the flavors were unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. The sweetness of the apricots played off the savory lamb in this unexpected but harmonious way.
That's a perfect example of how food can transport you to another place and time. And by sharing those stories, you're inviting others to join you on that journey. It's a wonderful way to connect with people on a deeper level.
This is all making me realize that talking about food isn't just about the technical aspects of taste and texture. It's about the emotions, memories, and cultural connections that food evokes. It's almost like food is its own language, one that speaks to our hearts as much as our palates.
I couldn't agree more. And just like any language, it takes practice to become fluent. The more you pay attention to flavors, expand your vocabulary, and engage in thoughtful conversations, the more articulate and expressive you'll become.
But let's be honest, even with the best intentions, there are times when those food conversations can go a bit sideways. Like, what do you do when someone is using so much culinary jargon that you feel completely lost?
That's a great point. It's important to remember that not everyone speaks the same foodie language. If you find yourself in that situation, don't be afraid to politely ask for clarification. You could say something like, "I'm not familiar with that term. Could you explain what it means?" Or, "Could you describe the flavor in a different way?"
That's a good reminder to be humble and approach these conversations with a willingness to learn. And on the flip side, if I find myself getting carried away with technical terms, I need to be mindful of my audience and make sure everyone is following along.
Exactly. It's a two-way street. We need to be both good listeners and clear communicators. And sometimes that means simplifying our language or offering additional context so that everyone can feel included in the conversation.
Okay, I'm feeling much more equipped to handle those potentially awkward moments. But there's one more scenario I'd like to get your take on. What about when someone expresses a strong dislike for a food that you absolutely love? How do you navigate that without offending them or dismissing their opinion?
That's a delicate situation for sure. I think the key is to acknowledge their perspective while also standing your ground. You could say something like, "I understand that it's not your cup of tea, but for me, the bitterness of dark chocolate is what makes it so irresistible."
So it's about being respectful, but also staying true to your own tastes. After all, everyone's palate is different, and what one person finds delightful, another might find unappealing. And that's okay.
Absolutely. Diversity of taste is what makes the culinary world so exciting. It's about celebrating those differences and finding common ground through shared experiences and a genuine love of food.
I'm loving how this deep dive is going beyond just vocabulary and getting into the heart of what it means to connect with others through food. It's making me think about all the ways I can use these skills to build relationships, explore new cultures, and deepen my appreciation for the art of cooking and eating.
And remember, it's not just about talking the talk. It's about walking the walk. Get out there, try new cuisines, experiment in the kitchen, and share your culinary adventures with friends, family, and even strangers. You never know what delicious connections you might make.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired to put all this wisdom into action. But before I rush off to plan my next foodie adventure, I'd love to get your final thoughts on what makes a truly engaging food conversation. What are those key ingredients that make a discussion about food not just informative, but truly memorable?
Well, I think it boils down to a few key ingredients. First, genuine curiosity. When you approach a conversation with a genuine desire to learn about someone else's experiences and perspectives, it creates a space for connection and discovery.
So it's not just about showcasing my own knowledge, but about actively listening and asking thoughtful questions that invite others to share their stories and passions?
Exactly. It's like being a culinary detective, piecing together the clues that reveal what makes a dish or a cuisine so special to someone.
I love that analogy. It makes me think about how every ingredient, every cooking technique, every cultural influence adds a layer of complexity to the story of food.
And the second ingredient is vivid storytelling.
Oh.
Don't just tell me what you ate. Transport me to that bustling market in Marrakesh. Let me inhale the aroma of freshly baked bread. Make me feel the crunch of a perfectly fried tempura shrimp.
It's about painting a sensory experience with words engaging all the senses to create a truly immersive conversation. I'm starting to see how even the most seemingly simple dish can become a captivating story when told with passion and descriptive detail.
And finally, don't underestimate the power of vulnerability. Sharing your own food mishaps, your unexpected discoveries, or even your emotional connections to certain dishes can create a sense of intimacy and authenticity.
That makes sense. It's about letting go of the need to be a culinary expert and embracing the messy, joyful, sometimes embarrassing reality of our experiences with food.
Precisely. It's those imperfections, those unexpected twists and turns that make our food stories unique and relatable.
I'm feeling so inspired to approach my next food conversation with a sense of adventure and openness. But before we wrap up, I'd love to get one last piece of advice from you. What's one small but impactful thing our listeners can do today to level up their food conversations?
I'd say pay attention to the details. The next time you sit down to a meal, really savor each bite. Notice the interplay of textures, the subtle layers of flavor, the way the aroma fills your senses, and then challenge yourself to describe that experience to someone else, even if it's just a simple text message to a friend. The more you practice articulating those sensory details, the more confident and engaging you'll become in your food conversations.
That's such a practical and actionable tip. It's a reminder that becoming a more articulate foodie isn't about memorizing a bunch of fancy terms. It's about cultivating a deeper awareness of our own senses and developing the language to express those experiences in a way that connects with others.
Exactly. It's a journey of exploration, discovery, and connection, one delicious bite at a time.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the perfect ending to our culinary deep dive. I'm feeling so grateful for your insights, and I'm excited to put all this wisdom into practice.
It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you. Remember, the world of food is vast and ever-evolving. So keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep sharing your passion with the world.
What a fantastic way to end our episode. To all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this delicious adventure. Until next time, happy eating and even happier talking about it.